Professional skills in strategic business leader. So what are the professional skills? I'm going to take you through the 5 professional skills which is needed in strategic business leader to pass. Let me tell you one thing before I proceed, that just knowing the technical knowledge, just knowing your stuff, just knowing your theory part, just knowing the models, the business model, you will not pass this exam. This is a very practical exam. This is a very different exam. Therefore, in order to pass this, you need your 5 professional skills. So here they are. What are the 5 professional skills? Number 1, communication. What is communication? Communication means you are informing, you are persuading, or you are clarifying, right? You have to express yourself very clearly and convincingly, okay, through an appropriate medium, right? It could be in any way. It could be through press release, it could be through emails, it could be through your web page, right? The medium could be various. But when you communicate, you have to be sensitive to the needs of the intended audience. For example, suppose I am communicating with my manager, okay, my senior manager, and I am in the junior post. So the way I communicate with my senior manager will be very different with the way I communicate to people subordinate to me, right? So you have to understand that difference. You cannot use the same medium, you cannot use the same words to communicate with every person, with all the stakeholders. The way you deal with your bank, it's not the same the way you deal with your shareholder, right? So there's a difference. So the way you communicate, the way you write, it could be either for informing, it could either be for persuading someone to change their decision, or it could be to clarify on certain matter, right? Let me go into detail of this. First, let me go in the detail of what is, okay, there are some advice on how to demonstrate inform, right? When you are, when you have this, when you have to inform someone, you have to think about who you are addressing in your answer. Who is the person? Who is the reader? Who is the audience? Whom you are targeting, right? Whom, to whom you are addressing. For example, if you are writing an extract for a board report, right? You need to focus on the strategic issues, but without giving into lots of operational detail, because the one who is sitting on the board, they don't need all this operational minute details. What they need is, they need the strategic details, right? So you have to adopt an appropriate tone to suit your audience. You also have to change the way you write. For example, formal versus informal, right? You should not use, you should use a language which is easy to understand for the person to whom you're communicating. You should not use, for example, you are communicating to a worker in a lower level, you should not use technical jargon. You should not use such language or such words which is very complex, which the worker who is at a lower level will not be able to understand. So you also have to take that in mind, which words you have to use. Okay, so if the question requirement asks you to use a specific format, in the question you will be given which format to use, right? So if they say use a bullet point slides, right? Bullet point slides, you must present your answer in that format. Why am I emphasizing on this word must? Because I have seen many students, many students, okay, despite of being saying that please use this format, you must use this format, still they are not using the correct appropriate format. They are using a format which they wish they want to use, right? If they are asking for a slide with bullet points, make a slide with bullet points. Don't go and write report over there. There's a specific reason why the examiner is asking you to write it. Do it, right? If the examiner is asking to write a report, you must write a report. You should not write slides. No matter, even if you're technically correct. Okay, let me tell you this. Even if you're technically correct, the format which you're using is a key for you to pass. Right? Use an appropriate format. That's a way of communication. Your format. If it's a brief report, use brief report. If it's a newsletter, use newsletter. If it's an email, use email. The format will be given to you. What format to use? Use that format. That's also a way you communicate. Right? Next, I want to talk about persuade. How you're going to persuade. Right? Some advice on how you're going to demonstrate this persuade. You have to support. Okay? What do you do when you have to persuade someone? Right? Suppose you are persuading me that you're telling me that I should buy your product. You're selling a product and you're buying. Why should I buy your product? I will be asking you the facts, right? You have to support yourself. You have to support. How will you support? You have to give some facts. Exactly the same thing you have to do in the exam. Support your arguments with facts. It doesn't matter what you think about your product, how good it is. No one cares. The customer. When you're saying, right, when you have to persuade someone, you have to give them objective facts. You have to give them facts. Support your arguments with facts. For example, suppose you are saying that we should reduce our cost. Now you saying we should reduce our cost is not persuasive. When you change your sentence like this, I believe we should reduce cost because this will increase our turnover by 10%, 20%. The fat is given here. You will do some calculations or ratios. So that makes it more persuasive, right? So you have to support your arguments with facts. The facts will be given to you in the exhibit, or you have to work out some calculations to prove it. Explain why you think a course of action is suitable or unsuitable. You have to explain why something is suitable, why something is unsuitable. Right? You have to use justifying words. You have to use justifying words such as because. Don't say reduce your cost. When you are persuading someone, don't say reduce your cost. Use the word because at the end. Reduce your cost because this blah 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 this will happen. That's how you persuade. You see, I recommend you do this because use that word. And how will you know? The more you write, the more better you get with your professional skills. See, your technical knowledge you can just study, you can memorize, right? But professional skill, you cannot read and understand. You cannot read it and learn it and be perfect at it. To learn the 5 communication skills, you have to practice writing. Right? You have to write. There is no other way out. There is no shortcut. You have to write it in a professional way, in a professional tone, in the appropriate format, with the correct tone. Right? Now, let's go to the third one, clarify. What is the meaning of clarify? How will you clarify? Okay. When you have to clarify, focus on the key points and avoid unnecessary detail. There will be so many details which you don't have to give all the details. Unnecessary detail is not required. Give only the key points. Just give what is needed. That's it. Right? Use headings to break down information into clearly identifiable sections. There will be so many things you want to write in one report or one paragraph. How will you do that? Break each sentence using some headings so that it will be very clear for the reader, for the audience to read it. They will know that yes, under this, this is there, under this is there. So be very clear, and you have to present your arguments in a logical order. It cannot be that, the order has to be there. The reader should understand that flow when he's reading, how it's connecting, how the first one is connecting to the second point, how the second point is connecting to the third point. There should be some connection. You cannot write in any order. It has to follow that logical order. That will make it more clear. Now let's go to the second communication skill, which is commercial acumen. Now, most of the students lack this professional skill. Commercial acumen, what does it mean? It means you have to have a broad knowledge, right? You are aware of a wider business and external factors which is affecting the business. That means you're having more information, you're having more knowledge, you are aware of what's happening around the business environment. To increase this commercial acumen skill, what you have to do, I recommend that you go and read journals, go and read all those articles. There are so many articles on ACCA website, on student magazines you will get, which will be very helpful for you, right? To gain commercial acumen, you can talk to your friends about business, what's happening, how the business is impacting. For example, today the hot topic is how COVID-19 has impacted the business, how the unemployment went up, and how in future they are going to recover. What are the steps they are going to take? So you can read articles on this, you can come up with ideas for this, right? Read more. Not just the textbook, but read more wider, have a wider knowledge. Internet is there, just go to internet, just Google and get it. That's it. It's just that simple. But the problem is that we don't want to do the hard work. We just want everything, we want to be spoon feeded. We want everything comes to us. We don't want to do any hard work. But do some hard work, it will pay you, right? You don't have to know in detail, right? But just having a brief knowledge of every industry, of every little things will help you in your exam. Because what happens is SBL is based on one whole industry, right? So you don't know what industry you're getting, but if you have a little knowledge about that industry, for example, it could be a government public sector, it could be a manufacturing industry, it could be a service industry, it could be IT industry, it could be retail industry, but if you know how it works, at least you'll be able to write your points from there through common sense. Even if you have forgotten your models, your concepts, your theory, doesn't matter. Through your common sense you can write if you know how it operates, right? You can read. So first, demonstrate awareness, right? How are you going to demonstrate this awareness? You have to think about a specific context of a scenario and identify how this affects to a decision. For example, oil price in Oman went down, right? How this is going to impact the Middle East, how it's going to impact the company. You have to have awareness of this. If you get a company like that, if you get an industry, oil industry, right? So you should have this awareness. And when you make recommendations, make sure that your recommendations is not something which cannot be applied, which is not practical. Your recommendation has to be practical. It has to be related to the context of the scenario. Whatever scenario you are given, it has to be related to that, not just some general recommendation, right? So please focus on those things. Use judgment. How are you going to use judgment? How are you going to demonstrate the judgment? When you have to use judgment, right? You have to prioritize the key points. You have to prioritize the key points. You have to use your own judgment there. What are the key points? Based on your judgment, you only have to make those points which are relevant to the scenario. See, there will be 10 or 20 points you are getting for something, but not all those 10-20 points you have to write. You will not have time in the exam also, and you cannot, trust me, you cannot write all the points, but at least write the top 3 or top 5 points, right? Which is very relevant to the scenario, very relevant. Like, you have to make it. So you have to make a judgment, which point I'm going to write, which point I'm not going to write, which is relevant, which is not relevant, right? And the recommendations which you give, because based on this you have to give some recommendations, right? It has to resolve the issues. There will be some issues given to you, some problems. How are you going to solve those problems? Based on your recommendation, right? Whatever recommendation you give, they should be able to solve that issue. And again, a very critical point I'm mentioning here: avoid making points which are not supported by facts. Don't write your own opinion if you don't have facts, if you don't have evidence to support that point. Do not make that mistake. This is not a paper where you are writing your own points, your own opinion. You have to support by fact. So make sure when you're making a recommendation or opinion, you have facts to support, because at the end your recommendation needs to be justified. Last one, show insight. How are you going to show insight? The recommendation, make sure the recommendations are appropriate and they are practical for the scenario which is given to you. One question you can ask yourself: is the recommendation feasible? The recommendation which you are offering, is it feasible? Will they be accepted by the key stakeholders? Also, you have to make sure that the decisions and the strategies which you recommend, they are appropriate for the organization which you'll be getting in the exam. Don't avoid making generic points. This is not a subject where you have to demonstrate your knowledge. This is a subject where you have to, what you have learned from your knowledge, you have to apply. It's an application. This is an application paper. Everything, all the recommendations, everything, it has to be related to that industry, that particular industry. So avoid making generic points. Right? Next, let's go to the third professional skill, which is known as analysis. What is analysis? Analysis is like you are you're thoroughly investigating and researching information from a variety of sources. You're analyzing, deep analysis, right? So analysis covers 3: investigate, inquire, and consider. Now, how are you going to demonstrate investigation? Don't simply repeat points from the scenario. I am repeating, don't simply repeat points from the scenario. Most of the people, what they do is they get the chunk of the details, chunk of sentences from the scenario, from the exhibits, and they copy paste. They copy paste it. Or some, they try to be over smart, okay? They try to show their over smartness. They just change the sentences here and there, right? The meaning is same, the context is same, they just change the sentences here and there. They just change some words to make it look different. Don't do that. You are wasting your time. You are killing your time. Don't do that. Don't simply repeat points from the scenario. Explain why they are significant and what their implications are. For example, you are given the sales turnover is reducing. So don't just simply say, okay, the sales turnover is reducing, because it's already given in the exhibits. You have to say, you have to investigate why it's happening, why the sales turnover is reducing. You have to, maybe you will get it in that exhibit, or maybe you have to go to some other exhibit and get it. Why that sales turnover is reducing? There could be so many facts. There could be so many reasons. Maybe number one reason, the customer is not coming. The customers are going to the competitor. The customer is reducing. The product may have become obsolete. It's not in demand now. Maybe the sales price is too high. Maybe the competition in the market has made the sales turnover of your company to fall down. Right? So there could be so many reasons. So you have to explain these points, why they have made that point very significant, that sales turnover has reduced. How it's going to what are the implications it's going to have in your business. Next, identify the relevant data from the different places within a scenario. Yes, you have to identify what is the relevant data. For example, for sales, if you are taking, you can take sales volume, you can take sales price, you can take customer data, you can take customer satisfaction survey. All those things are important for that, right? So you have to identify what are the relevant data. There will be so many data given to you, but not all are relevant for that piece of information. So you have to identify. And most of the time you will not get all this information in one place. It will be given into different exhibits. You have to pick up. You have to pick out from different exhibits and put in one answer. That is the challenge in SBL. That is the hardest part. Getting the information from the right exhibit. Later I will also be explaining how to go. I'll be doing a full whole paper, right? How to go, how to read the exhibits, how to point out, how to identify which exhibit is for which requirement and all those stuff, right? Next, for investigate, you also have to give reasons why a problem has happened. Just don't state the problem, right? We already know that the problem is there, but why? Why that problem has occurred? Go to the root cause. That is known as investigate. Now let's go to the inquire. What does it mean? Inquire means here what you have to do is you have to refer to the suitable evidence. That is the key here. You have to refer to a suitable evidence, right? Consider, make sure, okay, make use of the information in the scenario in order to recommend appropriate action. You have to, most of the people I have seen this, that you are given that whole 5 6 7 exhibits in front of you. Please, why is that exhibit given to you? Make use of that exhibit. Most of the people, they try to, from out of, I don't know from where, they think on their own, they make up some stories and they keep writing. Please use that exhibit that's given for you to use it. Take full advantage of that exhibit. Don't try to guess. Don't try to guess it. All the information what you need to write your answer for SBL is given in that exhibit. You just have to know how to write. You have to pick out how to pick from those exhibits and write it. That is the only thing. And that makes it much easy because you don't have to guess anything. Here is no guessing work here. Let me make it very clear, SBL is nothing about guessing. You don't have to guess. Yes, maybe for recommendations and all, if you have to give, yes, you might have to think a bit. But most of the time you don't have to. Whatever the points you make will be clear from the exhibits only. Right? Next, let's go to the fourth, skepticism. Skepticism. What does it mean? It means you are probing, you are questioning, you are challenging, you are not accepting on the face value of if someone is providing you with some information or some evidence. You are going behind, you are questioning that, you are challenging. You are not believing 100%, you are keeping an eye open, right? You have that 1% doubt. So, probe. What is the meaning of probe? And how do you demonstrate probe? Probe means you're deep, okay? Probe deeply into the underlying reasons for issues. You are going deep. Why that issue has occurred? Why the problem? You're going deep into that. You're not relying on someone completely, 100%. So, how are you going to demonstrate this probe? Don't automatically accept that the initial reason given to explain an issue is correct. Yes. Don't accept that if someone tells you that this is right, don't just blindly believe that person that this is right. You have your own knowledge, you have your own independence. You can think whether this is right or not. You have to do your own research. So do that. Right? You have to see, is the explanation somebody gives you, is it consistent with other evidence? You have to look for the other evidence. Is the evidence in line with what the other person is explaining you or telling you? Does the explanation that he or she has given you properly explain the issue or problem you are addressing? Right? For example, let me give an example for you to understand this better. Right? If a management accountant is offering an explanation of a variance between actual figures and budget, right? Are you satisfied their explanation properly explains the variance? Second advice is you draw together information from different sources. This is the key here. You have to be able to draw together information from different sources. Don't assume you will get all the information in one scenario, one exhibit. You can just take out and write. No. I wish it would be. Life would be so much easier. But no, it's not. Information lies in many different scenarios, many different exhibits. Right? So, draw together information from different sources rather than just including the most obvious or most easily accessible points. You have to go for different sources. You have to go and check his financial statements. You have to go and see the media report, the media release. You have to go and check his web page, what the customers are saying. Does it all match with each other? You have to see that, right? Does the information from one source support or contradict information from another source? You have to see that, because most of the time what happens is one source information is saying something else and from the other source it's not matching. So it has to, then you know that there's a problem, right? Question. The next is question. How are you going to question? You have to scrutinize any assumptions being made. There will be so many assumptions, right? They are saying that the sales growth, for example, let me give an example. Management is saying that the sales growth for the next year, they are predicting, right, will be 5%. You have to question why 5%, how they have calculated 5%, from where they have calculated 5%, why they have assumed it like that. So you have to question their assumptions. You have to see whether the assumptions is reasonable or not, right? Can they be supported by evidence which is available? So don't just simply accept everything you are told. Second, for questioning, you have to question the motive or the rationale behind facts or statements. For example, the auditor is giving you some statement that the company is bad or good, right? You have to question what is the motive of that auditor behind the statement. All of us know what happened to Arthur and Anderson, the collapse of that. Why? Because of the auditor helping them. Because auditor know that there's a fraud in that company, but still the auditor helped. So that's the main reason. You see, you have to question the motive or the rationale behind the facts or statements. You have to see how reliable, how objective is their evidence. Just because someone says that I am saying this based on this doesn't mean that it's a reliable source. You have to check how accurate it is, how objective, how reliable. You might have to identify some additional information, right? Next is the third one is about challenge. How are you going to demonstrate challenge? You have to highlight the weaknesses or problems with the information presented or potential decisions, right? You have to use evidence to support your challenge, and you have to justify the challenges you make. You have to identify the potential alternative interpretations of information, right? There could be so many ways of interpreting an information. You have to identify all the other potential ways of interpreting an information. Next, and this is the last professional skills, which is evaluation. Evaluation, you are assessing, you are estimating, and you are appraising, right? So what are you assessing? How are you going to assess? You are going to consider the potential importance and the urgency of a problem when deciding a suitable response to a problem. You can see how important is it, how urgent the problem is, and what are the suitable actions to be taken. It's like you are weighing advantages and disadvantages. Evaluation in short is that. So you are determining the potential advantages and also the disadvantages with a decision. You are seeing, you are weighing which one is more, the benefits or the drawbacks. You're determining the potential impact of a decision on key stakeholders. You're seeing how it's going to impact, how the certain decision is going to have an impact on the certain key stakeholders, and how the stakeholders are likely to react to that. You have to evaluate all this, right? You have to assess. Then second comes estimate. Yes, you have to estimate. Most of the time you will not get an accurate information. Here, there you have to make an estimate, but your estimation should be sensible. It should be justified estimates, not just any estimate, right? For example, in assessing the impact which a change in the business environment could have on an organization's performance, you have to estimate how much it can impact, how much the changes in the business environment can have an impact on your organization. There you have to estimate because you don't know. You're just focusing, right? And the last one is appraise. So, what is the appraise? You are presenting arguments for and against a proposed strategy, right? You are seeing whether it's good or a bad strategy. You are appraising. You have taken some certain strategy. You want to go to a new market. Now, you are also presenting the argument for and against that decision. Why you are doing that? So that an informed decision can be made. Whether you have to pursue that strategy or you don't have to pursue that strategy, whether it is beneficial to the company as a whole or not. And make recommendations, right? Which are appropriate to the circumstances. You have to recommend solutions which are appropriate to the circumstances on the basis of a balanced appraisal of advantages and disadvantages. So first, you have to see the advantages, disadvantages, then you have to see which one is more. Then you have to recommend. Based on that advantages and disadvantages, you have to recommend which actions to take, which decisions, right? So overall, in summary, let me summarize all the 5 professional skills. They are communication, analysis, skepticism, evaluation, and commercial acumen. So, one thing I want to tell you that if you want to pass this SBL, just know the technical knowledge is not enough. You have to have professional skills with your technical knowledge because your exam is 20% professional skills and 80% technical skills. So that's it. Do subscribe to my channel if you haven't subscribed to my channel, so that you get updated to the latest videos. And you can follow me on Facebook, Instagram, LinkedIn. And thank you. Take care. See you in my next video.